All right. I should be live. If you want to check it, that'd be good. So, today's topic is you cannot intimidate physics. I should probably define my terms. Intimidation means that you want someone or something, in this case, we'll allow for things, but it's generally someone. You want someone's behavior to act, to change. You want to change someone's behavior. You don't like the way they're acting. You want them to act the way you want them to act, and so you try to intimidate them. It works with people. Most of politics is intimidation, right? Most of economics is one form of intimidation or another. If you've ever had a boss who's asked you to work overtime, then you know how intimidation works in economics and then in the workplace. And of course, religion is just overrun, completely overtaken with intimidation. It starts with do this so you'll burn in hell, and it goes right on to here are the good people and here are the bad people, and if you're in the bad people, then you get intimidated, right? We've fought wars, including crusades that are just nothing but acts of intimidation for religion. So you find this all the time in like politics, economics, and religion. You find intimidation as a tool. And it works because politics, economics, and religion are not real. They're fake things. And people will tend to say, I don't think that's quite right. I don't think you have it right. And so if you want to win at politics or win at economics or win at religion, you have to intimidate them because they're saying that you're wrong and they just don't believe what you're saying, that they have to vote for you or they have to give you money or they have to, be your slave and take your orders from you, or they have to read a book and go to a church and give money there too. They're just not buying it. And so you have to intimidate them. Intimidation. It works in politics and economics and religion, and it's really necessary because because someone in a tier that's up here is trying to get someone in a tier down here to do what they want reliably, and these people down here ain't buying it, and these people up here have to intimidate them. So it's not too surprising that humans have decided that the world is all about intimidation. And that's because humans, by their nature, are fully embedded. For most people, they are embedded for their entire life, starting from like the age of 2 and getting more and more embedded and more committed to politics, economics, and religion until they die. And they die fully embedded. They never rescue themselves from these spheres of influence. To get out from under politics and economics and religion, to regain your own mind and to have your own thoughts about things and to be able to function, then what you really need is to I'll turn off my, there we go. What you really need to do is you need training. You need to de-chimp yourself. You need to make sure that you can think clearly and that you're not easy to intimidate, that you have a grasp on this other thing that's outside of politics, economics, and religion. And what is that other thing? Reality. Do you have a grounding in reality? Because if you don't, then you can be intimidated because you kind of don't know what's real, you don't know what's important, you don't know where you're supposed to be. Here's a little bit of a tangent. Getting a degree in the sciences. And I say sciences, and I'm here excluding mathematics. Mathematics is actually part of philosophy, believe it or not. I'm allowing science to be separate from even mathematics. Mathematics has been subsumed into economics. So getting an education in mathematics is not liberating. But getting an advanced degree, and here we're talking a master's degree or above, in the sciences, the hard sciences, is liberating. Because what it does is it gives you the tools and the deep, deep history of the human relationship with reality. When you have advanced exposure to the sciences, you are blessed with the tools of being able to see clearly and think clearly. And when you're embedded in politics, economics, and religion, those tools of thinking clearly are actually taken away. Because in that land, politics, economics, and religion, the main tool is intimidation and coercion and propaganda and just bald-faced lies. And if you don't have the right set of tools, you can't defend yourself from politics and economics and religion, because they are constantly draining you. They're constantly filling you up with just garbage. And as a consequence, you can't think clearly about those very topics, because those very topics are using tools of their own, like propaganda, to steal away from you the tools that you probably had when you were 2 years old, which is the ability and willingness and eagerness to see the real world. And education in the hard sciences will bring those tools back to you. It doesn't always work, by the way. There are a lot of scientists that have their head up their ass. But that's because they're doing science in the service of economics. They're doing, geologists, hard science, can be made to, work in the oil industry to find, oil resources and coal resources. And, by the time they're that deep into business, then again, the propaganda of progress and money and quarterly profits, they can just be beat into their head. So if you're a scientist who ended up going into politics, or a scientist who ended up going into economics, then it's possible that, again, your tools are being stripped away. You have enough of the tools to do the job and to work the instruments and read the data and write a report and submit the report to your boss and present the data on a slide with a pointer and do all these things. You have those tools, but you don't have the tools of basically stepping back and examining what it is that you're doing. So I submit that an education in the sciences gives you that ability to step back. And what you're stepping back into, when you step away from concerns of business and economics and religion, when you just kind of take a step out of that sandbox, what you're stepping into is another realm. You're actually elevating yourself to another means of existence, and that is reality. You are grounded. I like to say you're grounded in reality. Your feet are on the ground. You are grounded in reality. And there's some politics up there, and there's some religion over here, and there's some economics going on in between the two of those, and you're kind of watching these things happen, but your feet are in reality. Your feet are in reality. And I think that's a super critical place to be. I think we need more people that are grounded in reality. You can still watch politics, you can still play around with religion, you can still have your economic life, but you need to be grounded, feet on the ground, in the firmness of reality. Now that may seem like a simple thing. That may seem like, well, everyone's grounded in reality. No. I've been doing this a long time, and I can tell you that almost nobody is grounded in reality. If you follow someone around, if you could be a fly on the wall and watch them dealing with the world, the human world, they will hardly ever come in contact with reality. Maybe they trip and fall down a flight of stairs. There's some reality for you. It's called gravity. And the reality is, gravity, when you don't manage it correctly, which is what stairs are there to help you do, when you don't manage gravity correctly, you can break an arm. You can, crack your skull. You could kill yourself if you don't manage the reality of gravity correctly. So if you trip and fall down a flight of stairs, there's some reality for you. How'd that feel? How'd that work out for you? Because that was probably the only time today that you had any contact with reality. Yes, reality can kill you. And let me just point out to you that the stairs, as well made as they are simply a tool to help you manage gravity. And if you forget that gravity is real, then the stairs can't save you. If you forget that gravity is real, then someone can maybe, I don't know how they would do this, but they could convince you to jump out of the back of an airplane without a parachute on and fly like a bird. Why would they do that? Why would you believe them? I don't know. Both of you have somehow lost contact with reality. And now you're believing in miracles, because what else could make that happen? Well, no one's ever done that. But this happens every day on some level. This happens every single day on some level. People are told this is how it is, this is the political realities, this is the economic realities, this is the money, this is the job, this is the debt, this is the credit card, this is the degree you have to have, here's some student debt for you, this is all the realities of the world, and none of it's real. Maybe it's what you have to do. But there are things you have to do to be a politician. And there's many of the things you have to do to be a politician, to grow up and have that job, are really unsavory and dehumanizing. And there's a lot of things you have to do to be rich. And a lot of the times the things you have to do to be rich are really unsavory. And rich people get thrown in prison all the time, except they don't get thrown in prison because they're rich. So there's a point when you're trying to be rich, when you can still be caught out as a criminal. But once you are rich, then you avoid that. But there's this intermediate level of criminality that most rich people engage in. And it just is. Maybe they get away with it, maybe they don't. And the same thing with religion. There's a point where you have to start selling out as you go. And then finally, you believe stuff that's complete nonsense. So my example of someone convinces you to jump out of the back of an airplane without a parachute because gravity is a hoax, that's not far-fetched. It's simply maybe an extreme example of having no mooring in reality. Your feet are not grounded in reality. And it's very easy for people to become ungrounded. In fact, I would even suggest that the state of being not grounded in reality is the norm, is normal. People are that way. Now, all of this by saying, and I feel like I have to say these things because I assume that people understand what I mean when I'm saying things like that physics doesn't care. Physics isn't going to wait for us to wake up. Physics every day does what physics does, that the laws of physics are actual laws. It's not like speed limits, which are more like recommendations. The laws of physics are actual natural laws, and they don't stop being laws just because someone thinks that they're inconvenient. And I say these things all the time, but I've never really sat down and explained to people, yeah, that's how it works. And the reason why I'm doing this now is because recently the state of Texas suffered a massive flood, and now the governor of Texas is saying, well, it was the National Weather Service. They dropped the ball, or they sent us the ball, but they didn't send us in a way that we could understand it. And they sent us the ball the same way they always have, but actually someone who's supposed to catch the ball on our side had been laid off. And so that's why it didn't work. And they should have known that. I don't know why they would know that, but they should have known that. And they should have done something different. They should have fixed our broken political system, because that's why the person was laid off, right? It's politics, of course. Why else would you lay somebody off who's handling alerts from the National Weather Service? Why would you lay that person off? Wouldn't you lay off the garbage collector first? Why would you lay off this person who's supposed to be saving people from the real world? Because they didn't want to deal with the real world. Just didn't want to. Because the real world is where you find global heating. And global heating is fucking inconvenient right now. They've been saying, Texas is an oil state. They've been saying for decades, it's a hoax. Don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt anyone. It'll be a good thing. Global heating sounds good. Shorter winters, longer growing season. But actually, it's a hoax. Don't worry about it. And if you are going to worry about it, just think of it as a good thing. And, they've just been talking out of both sides of their mouth. It's a hoax, but it's real, but it's a good thing. And they just blather. They call carpet bombing. They just flood the zone with so many different opinions. You just pick and choose whichever one you want, and they walk away rubbing their hands because they got away with something. And you can get away with things. If you want to play politics with global heating and you want to play economics with global heating, we can't afford to stop burning fossil fuels. It would be the end of our economy. We need growth. We need jobs. If you want to do that, or even still, you want to pray to God that global heating is not going to hurt anyone. We're going to save everyone. We're going to find these missing children, and physics doesn't apply. Faith is the best thing. If you want to do all those things, I guess that's fine. But reality doesn't stop being real. And you're just taking a chance that eventually, when reality wakes up and scratches its back and looks at you, and your turn, okay? You're just hoping that day never comes. You're hoping that there is no tropical storm Barry that spins up off of Mexico and comes ashore in Mexico and kills a bunch of people and destroys a bunch of property, and then heads for Texas, and it heads right for the Guadalupe River, which they call themselves. They call it Flash Flood Alley. And it's going to be right over Guadalupe River, Flash Flood Alley. And you know all this is coming. This is all in the forecast. Everybody knows this. The evening news is carrying news of this, right? And you just do nothing. They did nothing. Oh, well, they did fire that guy who was supposed to get the notices from the National Weather Service. And they did do that in preparation for this disaster. They did do that. So they were prepared. They were prepared to just ignore anything having to do with physics. Just ignore it. And so now they got caught. Now they're caught, and they're running around saying things like, this happens all the time. Everybody there knew this was going to happen. It was their responsibility to keep track of things. Then they'll say, and I even heard someone in a press release on the next breath say, but really, this is very rare. We had no idea this could happen. There's no reason to expect there to be any problem. Hold on. This is either Flash Flood Alley, which you said 30 seconds ago, or it isn't Flash Flood Alley, and these events are really rare, and you couldn't possibly anticipate this. So which is it? Is it Flash Flood Alley, and everyone should have known this was coming, including the governor? Or is this not Flash Flood Alley, and this is a one-off? And this guy in this press release said both of those statements back to back. And I know how it works, because he knows his audience, and the audience will say, oh, yes, this is Flash Flood Alley. Everybody should know this. And then he says, oh, actually, no one could have anticipated this. Well, that's right. This is an act of God, although not our God, some other God. And and by the way, those little girls were at they call it a campsite. It's not a campsite. It's a religious retreat. It's like 10 acres. And it's some mega church has built this thing. And there's a huge church, and there's all these apartments around it. And, it wasn't like it was a campsite where some mothers took the kids down to the beach to have a sleep out. This is a mega church. There was 800 children there. Girls, by the way. It's an all-girls mega church retreat. They don't tell you that. You ever notice that? Maybe you're not paying attention. I'm paying attention because I want to know what's going on. I want to know what these chimps are thinking. And they never mentioned. They'll show you the pictures. The drone flyover. Here's the great big church, and here's the 40 or 50 buildings around it, and here's the kayaks, and here's the floaties, and all this other stuff. And 22 girls and their chaperones got swept away, and it was a campsite, and they're making it like it was. Like I say, a couple of mothers took up their girls down to the beach to have an overnight sleepover in sleeping bags on the beach. And this wasn't. This was an organized mega church retreat studying religion on the 4th of July. And they just didn't say anything. I think finally the National Weather Service invoked on their end, invoked their privilege to use the emergency alert system to broadcast to all the cell phones in that region that there was a catastrophic flood. There is a clause where after they've sent the messages and they're listening for feedback, no one's saying anything, they send the messages to the counties, to the governor's office. They're not doing anything. We'll send the messages. And then the National Weather Service, apparently, I'm not an expert in this area, but apparently according to actually the Texas authorities, the National Weather Service unilaterally did what they are allowed to do without needing any permission from the state of Texas. The National Weather Service invoked the technology, and they sent out an emergency alert warning Probably hit all the cell phones, but by then it was really late. They have to jump through all these other flaming hoops to try and get the local authorities to do something. And after a while, then they are allowed somehow, through some treaty with the state, they are allowed to invoke the federal emergency alert system, which hits all the cell phones. And I was wondering in an earlier video, why didn't someone just, I even held up my cell phone. I have it with me right now. I held up my cell phone. I said, everybody has one of these. Everybody in Texas has one of these. Most of those 10-year-old girls had one of these, probably. Most of them. Why didn't someone just send out an alert on the emergency alert system that goes to all the phones, wakes them up, turns the volume to 10, flashes a big thing on the screen, big warning goes off. And, if you're anywhere near your cell phone and your cell phone is anywhere near a tower, well, then you get woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and this thing is going off and red flashing lights and all this stuff. And apparently they did that. But it wasn't the state of Texas. It was the National Weather Service, who finally were permitted to just go on the system and send the alert and hit all the cell phones. And yeah, they did that. So I guess I was wrong to say that no one did it. They just didn't want to talk about it. The authorities in Texas didn't want to talk about it. That it was the National Weather Service that actually came along and said, all right, we're doing this. You don't want to do this? We're doing this. But it was at the last minute. And now, of course, they'll be blamed for that. They'll be blamed that they invoked the emergency alert system at 2 o'clock in the morning and the flood damage was coming at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they invoked it. But the state of Texas knew half a day before this was happening. It had been on the evening news. Everybody knew. Everybody that lived in that region knew this was coming. How much rain was going to fall, where it was going to fall, everybody knew. But it was the 4th of July and nobody wanted to lift a finger, so they didn't. I'm ranting on Texas because what I am worried about is that the current federal administration, the Trump administration, and certain states like Texas and Florida, just to pick a couple, are trying to intimidate science. Now, you can intimidate scientists. These are people. And people, of course, have an economic footprint. These are scientists. They work for the government. They work for the universities. And they need their pay. They need their salary because they have a mortgage and, college fees and food and all these other things they have to have. Plus, they're, of course, building their career. So they don't want to damage their career. And so you can intimidate scientists. You can, because they're humans. And because they're not independently wealthy, which scientists used to be, by the way. There was a time in history when scientists could only be scientists by being independently wealthy. And they just did whatever they wanted to do. If they wanted to do science, they did science. Well, now science is a job, meaning it's a business. And business is one of the 3 abstractions, all right, along with economics and religion. So you can intimidate scientists. You can. And you can intimidate universities, and you can everything that is made up of humans, scientists, universities, teams, agencies like the National Weather Service, the NOAA, FEMA, right? You can intimidate agencies because they have humans, and you can intimidate individual scientists, and you can intimidate scientific programs at universities, and you can intimidate entire colleges at universities, schools of this and schools of that. But you can't intimidate physics. And that's where these people have gone off the rails. They've just gone off the rails. They're just wrapped up in their own bullshit. And they think, I don't know this, but from all the evidence suggests that they think, I don't want to get too deep into their heads because their heads are pretty fucked up, okay? But it seems to me from a distance, just watching these chimps play out this drama, they seem to think that if they can intimidate the humans doing the science, that the physics will stop being real. And they've been doing this for decades, since the 70s. If you don't like what a scientist says, defund them, and they'll stop saying it. If you don't like what a university how they're using their grant money to study science, like climate science, glaciology, global warming, right? Defund them. If you don't like what the IPCC writes in their reports, then just pull our scientists out of the IPCC process. Don't let them contribute. If you don't like what those nations signed on to at the Paris Climate Accords, and that's politically inconvenient or economically threatening to you, just pull out of it. So what's weird about that is that it kind of makes this statement, or it kind of speaks to an underlying belief that none of this is real. And that if you just stop talking about it, if you just don't get the alert that there's a terrible flash flood coming, if you just don't get the alert, or you say, oh, that's an alert, whatever, I don't believe it. They're always wrong. You know that's what they did. You know that's what they did. What's this alert? Don't you know that today's the 4th of July? Why am I going to send this alert out and alert everybody and send them all scurrying for cover and evacuating all these towns and evacuating, the mega church campsite, and all 800 girls now need transportation? Why would I issue this when they're always wrong? That was the thought. That was the actual thought. Now, they're never going to admit, well, I shouldn't say they'll never admit to it. Actually, somebody might at some point in a press conference admit to it. And what would they say at that point? Well, okay, we knew, but we kind of weighed the threat against the perceived advantage of not reacting to it, and we decided not to react because the threat didn't seem too bad, and reacting to it would be really bad. We'd interrupt everybody. They'd yell at us. They'd vote us out of office. They'd sue us for wrecking their business plans for the weekend, whatever, And so we have some threat that maybe, and we have the guaranteed repercussions of acting on this, which is going to be we get in big trouble with all these denialist Texans. So we just dropped it. Maybe they'll say that. I can guarantee you that was the thought process. Because they looked at the threat and they said, that can't be real. What? That they're trying to say that this global heating and climate change, right? What? Catastrophic storms? We're going to get 10 inches of rain? What? This is wacko. This is wake. Whoa. These are woke scientists. They've got an agenda. Forget that. Physics is real. Physics doesn't care if you think it's wacko and woke and everything else. Physics is still going to come along and kill you. Why do we have alerts? To save people. Or try to. At least give people the information that they might be, with some high probability, they might be in harm's way, and let them make adult decisions. At least do that. You don't have to go out there with your guns loaded and held in the air and telling people to evacuate on at the threat of being shot. You don't have to do that, but at least give them adult information to make adult decisions, and then they can decide what they want to do with their lives. Maybe they want to leave. Maybe they want to get out of there. Maybe they don't want their girl at that mega church. Maybe they get on the phone and tell their daughter, hey, get to higher ground. There's a flood coming. At least let them have that choice. But they didn't want to. No, they chose not to. Yeah, and we're going to find out. Well, actually, we won't find out. We will never find out what happened here. We'll never know the truth. A little bit has been seeping out here and there, and we'll never know the truth. But I can read between the lines, and so could you if you wanted to. And what we're reading between the lines here is that they've been intimidating science. They've been intimidating scientists. They've been shutting down universities. They've been pulling us out of the IPCC process. In Florida, it's illegal to talk about global climate change. And they're defunding the National Weather Service, and they're retiring all the senior scientists. And they actually did that. And they're defunding NASA, and they're pulling the data that they used to offer from the defense satellites. They're pulling that data and keeping it to themselves. They're not sharing it with the civilian weather services. These are all the things they've done. That's all in the record. That's all in the public record. And scientists and administrators at various stages have said, if you keep doing this, you're going to cripple our ability to deliver what's happening in the real world. And that's exactly what happened. At this point, we cannot deliver warnings and news about what's happening in the real world. And why would you cripple your ability to do that? Because of politics, because of economics. There's big economic problems with evacuations. Businesses hate it. Businesses absolutely hate it when the government issues an evacuation warning. They absolutely hate it. And you say, Cougar, that's cruel. That's exactly how it is. They hate it. Well, then they're placing people's lives, they're placing their profits ahead of people's lives. That surprises you? Really? Haven't businesses and corporations been doing that since medieval times? Placing their profits ahead of other people's lives? Of course they do. That's what slavery was all about. Slavery was all about 100% profit, no wages, destroying people's lives and families because you enslaved them. How far does that go back? Mesopotamia, Egypt, Rome, Greece. How long have we been enslaving people for economic reasons? Yeah, we're really good at this, folks. We are very good at this, of placing profits ahead of protecting humans. We are very good at this. And we do this to this day. So don't tell me that they didn't weigh. We got this alert, but it's the 4th of July and we're going to have to evacuate people and they're going to hate that. And the businesses are going to come back at us and say, what's wrong with you? And the families are going to say, what's wrong with you? We had to drive all the way back to the mega church campsite to get our daughter. And because I felt so bad if I didn't do it and something bad happened, I would be terrible, terrible parent. So you alerted me and now I have to worry. And if you hadn't alerted me, I wouldn't be worried. Well, yeah, but you also wouldn't have saved your daughter. But now I'm worried. And what if it doesn't happen? Well, that's a good thing. No, now I'm worried. And I have to drive 3 hours to get to the church. And I have to get my daughter up at 2 o'clock in the morning and drag her out of there. And she's going to be upset. And I'm going to be upset. And the church is going to be upset. And, and I didn't want this. And I paid $4,000. To get my child in this camp and to be properly indoctrinated. And now it's all messed up and she's crying and my husband is screaming and the church is mad at me. And why did I do this? Because I was worried. And why was I worried? I was worried because there was a stupid notice that went out on my cell phone saying, there's a flash flood coming. And so obvious the solution is simply not issue the alert. I mean, isn't that the obvious solution? And I've been saying for 3 solid months, like the last 4 videos, I've been saying they can't change the physics of global heating. They were hoping it would happen to somebody else. Well, now it's happening now. It's happening to us now, not someone else later, us now. And so they've been in denial. They've been putting business as usual ahead of actually dealing with reality. They'd rather deal with business and economics and religion and not so much with reality. And so they convinced everybody it's a hoax and they're playing a game. They're playing a monkey game with reality. Reality doesn't care. You can intimidate politicians you don't like. You can kill them in their homes. And that also has been happening. You can, you intimidate workers by threatening to fire them. You can intimidate journalists by threatening to fire them if they don't report things the way you want them to. You can intimidate humans. You can get all of this global heating stuff off the airwaves. You can get it out of the newspapers. You can use intimidation to get everybody who has something to say about global heating under a rock. And, of course, ultimately, if not under a rock, then you could do like the Soviets did and just put them in prison. Imprison them. Send them to a gulag. Oh, and by the way, Russia would, well, we know already that El Salvador will. Russia, they still got actual gulags in Siberia. And they would probably take your political prisoners and put them in their gulags and, take the $2,000 a month to house them. There are actual gulags for political prisoners and dissenters and intellectuals who print the wrong things and write the wrong kinds of books, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn and all the others. There's actual gulags in Russia where you can send these people. So I guess that's next. And at the very least, of course, they go to YouTube and they tell YouTube, okay, we're intimidating you now, just so you know. We're going to kick you off the internet if you're not careful, or tax you, or take away some little benefit you've had all this time. And we're intimidating you, and we're deliberately saying that to just cut to the chase. We're intimidating you because we want you to go onto your creator lists and get rid of any videos that contain in the title or in the transcript any mention of climate change or global heating or really atmospheric anything or carbon dioxide emissions or fossil fuels or any of that stuff. It'll be a long list, right? It's a long list. Just take them all down. We don't care what excuse you use. Just take them down. Of course, they'll come up with excuses. Something like, well, Sandy Shoals was taken offline, the environmental coffee house. She wouldn't even talk about it. She was so upset about it. Something about children. So maybe in her video she had a child or something. There was a child in the video. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. They'll come up with something. On my videos, they'll come up with language because I swear a lot. God damn it! And they'll come up with language, and they'll come up with I was pandering misinformation. That I said something bad about Texas. That I got political. That'll be it. I got political. Oh, and I was slandering the Christian faith. I slander the Christian faith. I'm an absolute blasphemer. I am a blackguard blasphemer. So some bunch of Christians will complain and I'll be taken down. Fine. Guess what, assholes? Guess what? I win anyway. You can take me down. You can take me off of here. You can blacklist me. That's fine. You know what happens anyway? Physics wins. Physics wins. Physics is real. I'm just here representing physics. Physics thinks you're full of shit. In physics, the real world, the world that is round and not flat, where gravity is an actual effect, where there is an earth dynamic system that is driven by the heat of the sun and in balance with the greenhouse effect, which is driven by atmospheric components like CO2 and methane, which we are putting into the atmosphere when we burn fossil fuels. All that reality, all that real shit, that doesn't go away. You can intimidate me. You can take my channel down. The police can knock my door in and arrest me and send me to a gulag in Russia. Guess what? You're gonna die. Anyway, you're gonna fucking die. Reality is gonna come for you, you fucking chimp. It's gonna kill you. Reality is going to kill you all. And it doesn't matter what you do to me. It doesn't matter what you do to science. It doesn't matter who you defund. It doesn't matter who you intimidate. Physics is going to kill you. All of you. So you want to take my channel down? Go ahead. Doesn't change anything. You can't intimidate physics. You can deny it. You can play politics with physics. You can pretend there's economic realities that suspend the laws of physics. You can pretend that prayer will save you from physics. You can pretend that some people are better than other people and physics harms the bad people and doesn't harm the good people. You can take all those approaches. You're full of shit. Go right ahead if it makes you feel better. I really want you to feel better about your life. I really do want you to be calm and centered. I want you to be confident that you've got a handle on things. I want everyone out there to know that business is important. And you have to pursue that at all costs. And I would never say anything bad about business. And economics is critical. And you have to pursue economic realities and jobs and growth and everything else. And religion and spirituality is what keeps America great and has made America what it is. And, killing the Indians didn't have anything to do with that. It was all faith in God. And we are God's world. And we are God's country. And, and worship and faith and prayer and all that stuff is very important. I want you to continue doing that. And then physics is going to kill you. Physics is real, and it doesn't care. It doesn't care what you think. It doesn't know what you think. It's just doing what it has to do. And the Earth dynamic system is going to kill you. All of you. Ordinarily so. Well, it's not going to kill me. I know that it's coming. I know physics is real. I can hear it. I can hear it knocking on the door. I can hear it crashing through the forest. I know it's coming. Oh, yeah. I know. I know what's coming. Doesn't do me much good, except it allows me to evaluate if I'm in a okay spot, doing the right things, watching for the correct threats. Okay? I think I'm good. I'm confident. And the rest of you are just going to catch whatever is coming your way. That's it. You're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it's going to be either the flash flood or the lightning or the tornado or the hurricane or the heat or the food crisis, the food shortage, the refugees, the totalitarian regime, the Gestapo, the Gulag. Something's going to catch you. You're going to be going through your life chimping out, and then you reach for the wrong banana and they slap manacles on your wrists, and away you go to the gulag or the super prison or the maximum prison or the something else. Or maybe they just throw you off a bridge with cement overshoes. I don't know what they're going to do to you. And if they don't do it, physics does. It's all real, people. And put on whatever rose-colored glasses you want. Well, there's business realities. Well, economic realities. We have to think about economic business. Well, it's God's will, and if God didn't want this, God would stop it. It must be what we're supposed to be doing because we got this far. Well, I don't think the climate can change. I think the Earth is flat, and you can think whatever you want to think. Whatever can get you through your day, get you off my back. Whatever you have to do. America? Physics is going to kill you. Is that clear enough? Is there any other way I could say that that's more clear? Believe what you like. Think what you like. Deny what you don't like. Don't send out the messages. Don't rescue the little girls. It's still going to kill you. Because physics is real. And it never stops being real. And global heating is an aspect of physics. We have screwed around with the greenhouse effect. We have enhanced the greenhouse effect. The Earth is getting warmer. In fact, it's getting hotter. That's not going to stop. That never goes away. We are making the world uninhabitable for human purposes and human uses. And when the world is uninhabitable for human purposes, it kills the humans. Because they have no purpose being there. It's too hot. It's too flooded. It's too cold. It's too dry. There's a drought. There's a refugee crisis. There's a collapse of the food supply chains. Whatever it is. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, you're dead. Because physics. And you can't intimidate physics. And you won't. And you'll just eke out your business as usual for another week or a month. And you'll maybe have another great 4th of July. And then the day after, you're all dead. Physics doesn't care. And in the future on this channel, after this video, when I say physics doesn't care, I want this entire 45-minute video to be in your head. Physics doesn't care about business. It just doesn't care. Physics doesn't care about your precious economic growth. Physics doesn't care. How much more clear can that be? And physics doesn't care about your personal relationship with Christ Jesus. Physics doesn't care about any of it. Pray all you want. You better first find out which God it is that wrote the laws of physics, because that's the one you want to be praying to. Oh, I got news for you. There isn't one. Or if there is, it hates you. There was a 70s bumper sticker. That is kind of the basis for this next book I'm going to write. Not that I've finished the one I'm working on now, but I have another one planned. And the bumper sticker is this: God is coming, and man is she pissed. Now in America, pissed means angry. God is coming, and man is she angry. And why would she be angry? Well, everyone thinks God is a guy. Well, she could be angry about that. But also, everyone thinks that God is an abstraction. And there's no woman that's an abstraction. Women are real. And you're not listening to her, and you're doing her wrong, and she's angry. And she's going to come at you, and she's coming at us now. God is coming, and man is she pissed. All right. Deal with it, bitches. Deal with it. She is not happy. You have ignored the most important rules that God ever made, and those are the laws of physics. Why did she even bother with making physical laws when you bunch of chimps are just going to ignore them? What was the point? Explain to me why I did all that. That's what she's asking. If there is such a God, if there's no God at all, that's what she's asking. Why did I bother making laws to govern the universe, and then you people ignore them? And you ignore them in the name of God, and the God you ignoring them in the name of isn't even real. How did this go so wrong? Yeah, I'm a blasphemer. Whatever. It's the only thing that gives me hope. So there you go. I will be back soon. I got other things to talk about, but right now I have a basement to finish, and it's coming together nicely. I have the stairwell to put the siding on, because the stairwell is outside, so of course it has to have siding. And then I have stairs to put in, and then I don't have to use the lift anymore. And then I can finish the interior of the basement, and then I have a nice bomb shelter and a place to escape the heat, because physics is a bitch. And she's coming. Right. See you next time.